Welcome to another bonus edition of Upon Further Review.
Upon further review,
And in this edition, we'll be talking about the Denver Broncos at the New England Patriots. You can catch this Week 9 matchup on November 2nd at 4:20 p.m. Eastern Time, and that will be aired on your local CBS affiliates. So the Broncos are going into this game with a record of 6-1, and the Patriots are 6-2. The Broncos won their first two games at home in Denver, first in Week 1 against the Colts, then in Week 2 against the Chiefs. Then they went on the road to Seattle, and they lost in the rematch of Super Bowl 48 as they went to Seattle and lost to the Seahawks in overtime by a touchdown. Then in Week 4 they had a bye, and since then they have been undefeated in the last 4 weeks as they're on a 4-game winning streak, first winning in a blowout against Arizona, as it was close, but then they just ran away with it, and they beat Arizona by 3 touchdowns there in Denver. And then they went to New York and they beat the Jets, and then they went back to Denver and they beat the 49ers and the Chargers. And now in Week 9, they go on the road to New England. It's the first of 3 straight road games for the Broncos and 4 out of 5 road games. So first off, going to New England is going to be tough. And the Patriots, they start off the season with a loss in Week 1 in Miami against their division rivals, the Dolphins. Then they went to Minnesota and they beat the Vikings. They then went back to New England and they beat the Raiders. But then they went on the road to Kansas City and they got destroyed by the Chiefs on Monday Night Football. But then they bounced back in Week 5 against the Cincinnati Bengals as they just blew them out. And then in Week 6 they went to Buffalo and they beat the Bills. And then in Weeks 7 and 8 they were in New England, first beating their division rivals the Jets, and then the Bears in a rematch of Super Bowl 20 as they just blew the Bears out the water. They destroyed them. And so the Patriots are also on a 4-game winning streak. And the difference between the Patriots and the Broncos, Patriots have one more loss, but they also haven't yet had a bye. Their bye comes after this game, so Patriots get their bye next week. But as for this game, the Patriots are a little banged up. They're going to be without Chandler Jones, and of course Mayo. And of course, over on Denver's side, they're going to be without Monty Ball, as he's been out for a while. Hillman has been doing a pretty good job in Ball's absence. He's actually been doing better, really. He's already got a pair of 100-yard rushing games. He's the only Bronco to reach 100 yards in a game so far this season. He had 109 last week against the Chargers and 100 against the Jets back in Week 6. The Patriots, they're also having issues at running back. Last week, Gray had 86 yards, and that was the 3rd highest rushing game for a Patriot this season. Ridley had a pair of 100-yard rushing games. Of course, he's not going to be available, as I'm sure you're familiar with. But let's look inside the stats, as this is a big game. Brady versus Manning 16. And actually, in the last 4 meetings between these two teams, since Peyton Manning has joined the Broncos, the Patriots have beaten the Broncos 3 times, and the Broncos have only beaten the Patriots once since Peyton has put on that yet orange and blue jersey. And that one victory that the Broncos had over the Patriots was in Denver last year in the AFC Championship game. But during the regular season, Peyton has yet to beat the Patriots as a Bronco. And historically, over the 15 times that they have faced each other, Tom Brady has beaten Peyton Manning, regardless of uniform, 10 times. Brady's always been a Patriot, but regardless of Peyton's uniform. And Peyton's only beaten Brady 5 times. So Brady has the huge advantage. He's beaten him 2-1, 10-5. And here we go with the 16th meeting, and let's look at the stats for these two teams that those two field generals are at the helm of. And for the Broncos, when it comes to passing, they're the 3rd most proficient team in passing yards per game. The Patriots are 10th. And when it comes to passing defense, the Broncos are 17th in passing yards allowed. The Patriots are 2nd. So they're pretty evenly matched when it comes to the passing game. The strength of the Patriots defense is their pass defense. The strength of the Broncos offense is their pass offense. And then when it comes to the Patriots, their passing stats aren't as high, but they're in the top 10, and Brady has been turning it on lately. As we saw last week, he had 354 yards against the Bears. Then back in week 6, he put up 361 against Buffalo. Even against Cincinnati at 292. So he's been coming on lately and putting up bigger numbers, and that number should improve overall for the Patriots as the season goes on. The Broncos, they struggle against the pass. That's kind of the weak spot on their defense. They have a really good defense, but they're 17th in passing yards allowed. So the advantage when it comes to the passing game, I'm going to have to go with the Patriots, because their defense is so evenly matched with, the Broncos passing game, and they're so good against Peyton. So when you see how, the Patriots offensive passing game matches up against the Broncos passing defense, that's why I'm giving it to the Patriots. Now we look at the running attacks of both teams, and the Broncos are 21st in rushing yards per game. The Patriots are 17th. When it comes to running defense, the Broncos are number 1, and the Patriots are 25th. So the clear advantage when it comes to running the ball goes to the Broncos. They, they don't really put up yards on the ground. The Patriots don't either. They both have injuries at running back, as I stated earlier. But when it comes to running defense, the Broncos are the best in the league. Is the improvements that they made in the offseason to that run defense have really flourished. They're also healthy. They had some injuries last year, but Von Miller's healthy, and DeMarcus Ware is a huge addition to that defense. Even, Aqib Talib, he's in the secondary, but he's good defending the run. And he also allows them to concentrate more on the run when they know that they have quality back there in the secondary, even though they do let up some yards against the pass. The Patriots, on the other hand, they have trouble stopping the run. They let up a lot of yards on the ground, so the advantage on the ground goes to Denver, even though they can't really, neither one of them really runs the ball, but Denver does not let you run against them. So when we go to look at the scoring, when points for and points allowed, Broncos are number 1 in the NFL at putting points on the scoreboard and their average per game. The Patriots are 3rd, so they both put up a lot of points, so expect to see a high score in this game. When it comes to points allowed, the Broncos are 6th and the Patriots are 14th. So the Broncos are pretty good when it comes to stopping other teams from scoring. The Patriots are kind of middle of the road. They do let teams put up points on the board. Both teams have really high scoring offenses, but you're going to have to give the advantage with the numbers on paper. The Broncos are better when it comes to putting points up and stopping from other teams from scoring and keeping them out of the end zone and forcing them to settle for field goals. So statistically speaking and on paper, the Broncos have, the slight advantage over the Patriots. This is a really talented Broncos team. They just might be the best team in football, quite possibly. But these games are not played on paper. They are played on the football field. And when you go to New England, and when it's Tom Brady and Bill Belichick against Peyton Manning, the Patriots that's when they play their best, and no one out game plans Bill Belichick, and nobody out studies or out practices or out prepares Tom Brady, although Peyton is right there with him in his preparation. They're two of the best of all time. Definitely both of them are going into the Hall of Fame. This should be an instant classic, as are all of their matchups, all 15 before, as this is Brady Manning 16. It's going to be a heck of a game. Can't wait to watch it. I got to go with the Patriots in this one, though. I know that most people are going with the Broncos from what I've seen, with all the pundits, but it's in New England, and so the Patriots have the advantage. If it was in Denver, then maybe the Broncos would win. I mean, even really, they did win the last game in Denver. Of course, the Patriots have beaten Peyton in Denver, though, so we'll see what happens. But I think the Patriots are going to win this one. I think that, both teams are going to put up points, but the Broncos haven't really been tested so much in the second half of games. Usually what's happened this year is the Broncos get out to an early lead, and then they just kind of fall asleep at the wheel. You can't do that against the Patriots. We seen last year when these two teams faced off in New England. I believe that was a Sunday night game. The Broncos were just destroying the Patriots in the first half of the football game. They had a huge lead, but then the Patriots came back and they ended up winning as they came from behind. I mean, that was an amazing game. And that game ended up going to overtime. It ended up with the Patriots winning by a field goal. I said in the first half, it was 24-0 Broncos. But then in the second half, the Patriots scored 31 points to tie the game, as later in the fourth quarter, the Broncos scored another touchdown. They didn't even score in the third. The Patriots came out of halftime last year, scored 21 points in the third quarter. And so that game ended up going to overtime. The Patriots won by a field goal. That's how close this game could be, too. It could end up being a similar type of thing. Not necessarily with it being like such a difference in terms of first half to second half, but in terms of it coming down to a field goal. I think it'll be actually a tighter game. The Broncos, they're going to have to get ahead if they have any chance of winning this one. But if they can't jump out to an early lead, then it's all Patriots. Like, it's right into their hands. Because as long as the Patriots keep it close and within striking distance, and this game comes down to the wire, it doesn't even really matter if it's one score or two scores. In the fourth quarter, Tom Brady will find a way to get the Patriots in the win column and get the victory there in New England, in Foxboro, in front of the hometown fans of the Patriots. So that's what I think is going to happen. Let me know what you think is going to happen by leaving a comment below. Interested to read your thoughts and opinions. If you enjoy the show, make sure to hit the like button. If you want more of this content, go ahead and subscribe as we bring you upon further reviews for each and every single game, each and every single week of the entire NFL season and the playoffs all the way through the Super Bowl. We also do recaps of all the NFL games. We cover some other sports as well. Thank you very much for listening. It is greatly appreciated. I hope you're having a good day and have a great weekend and enjoy all the sports.